So here we are in the Stadtklause next to Anhalter Bahnhof in Berlin for the 66th Berlinale or Berlin International Film Festival, and I want to begin here with a quotation from your good self, Neil Young, because a year ago we did a communication and exchange on this festival for a print publication, Kino, in Ljubljana.
Oh yeah.
And I want to quote the final few paragraphs of that piece, in which you wrote to me, "If the Berlinale, all of it, were to be somehow outlawed tomorrow, if all funders decided to pull the plug, would film culture as we know it be better off or worse off? 65 years is a decent enough run for any cultural phenomenon, and a certain degree of ossification over such a period is perhaps inevitable. Berlinale has, of course, evolved in 65 years, and the advent of Forum Expanded is the most obviously welcome new development." And so it goes. "But, in nearly every other sense, the clock seems to have been halted in 2002 when Dieter Koslik took over." That's director of the festival. "The catalogue looks the same, the golden fireworks pre-film ident is near identical, Potsdamer Platz is as dreadful as ever. Berlinale under Koslik clearly operates under the dodgy ethos of, if the recipe works, why change the ingredients?" To what extent have your sentiments and feelings about this festival altered during your... How many days have you been here now?
7.
Okay.
Well, none, because obviously it's the same recipe as last year. I don't see any difference. I mean, the composition of the films might change, and there might be one or two worthwhile films scattered around the programme, but it hasn't. I don't see any differences at all. Mm-hmm. Maybe you've been more adventurous in looking at different parts of the programme. I've been very restricted. I've largely watched Forum films, partly because I was invited here by the Forum. Mm-hmm. So
you're here under the auspices of the Forum section. Yeah. And does that include Forum Expanded?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's under the same umbrella, but. Like, I just saw the only press screening for Forum Expanded, a Portuguese-German thing called Muito Romantico. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I've only seen one film in competition, which was Midnight Special, which we watched sitting next to each other. I'll see Soy Nero tomorrow. So I can't claim to have waded through the many different sections of the programme. But obviously you speak to people and you get the atmosphere of the place. And as I say, if there's any difference from last year, it's eluded me. It's too subtle for me to notice the difference. And stars and red carpet and big sponsors and what very wide range of films. It's still the case that obviously Berlin, like Cannes and Venice, it's nearly all world premieres, and so most of the festivals that we go to in the course of the year are more selective because they're choosing films from festivals like this. So you will necessarily spend a day watching films. A lot of the films here are never going to do anything. They're never going to go anywhere. People are going to forget about them. And yet, in 10 years, people look back and they'll say, "Oh, this premiered there and that premiered there," and then you have 6 pages of films that they don't really register. And that's the case that's the case at Cannes. It's the case at Venice. Maybe less so at Cannes because that's become such a kind of giant figure in the room. But no, it's still a Potsdamer Platz.
So, is it fair to say that you're negotiating this year's edition with a certain disgruntlement?
Well, it's my own fault for organising my schedule the way I
the first question was a yes or no question.
Which one was
Are you negotiating this year's edition with a certain disgruntlement?
It comes and goes. Like it's very peaks and troughs.
Because the second question was going to be,
am I ever going to come back?
Yes. Well, no. Why do you come back? What does Berlinale mean to you as a film critic who has to, navigate this very precarious trade?
Yes. Well, it means money because I get paid by Hollywood Reporter to do reviews and RogerEbert.com for whom I'm doing 2 reviews. It means a chance to meet people for publications and festivals that I wouldn't probably get to meet elsewhere. I didn't go to Cannes or Venice last year. The reason I write for Hollywood Reporter partly is because I met one of the editors here years ago, and that led to that. But it feels like work. Every day feels like work. I'm writing for the deadline.
In the good sense?
No, in the bad sense. Why possibly feel like a good thing? That's why we do what we do, so we don't feel like we're at work. So I've got this daily deadline, and I've got to work to that. And if I miss the daily deadline at 1 o'clock, it doesn't get in the daily edition, all that kind of thing. And I've got a list of films I've got to watch. And yes, it's bracing and salutary to have to do that every now and again, because that's not how it works at most festivals. But I can't say that I find it an enjoyable environment, and it's very frustrating that you see literally hundreds of people that you know, but you don't have time to speak to them, and everybody's rushing around doing different things. And it's a great. I always say it's a great place to see people, a terrible place to meet people or to talk to people, and that can be very cumulatively frustrating. And like last night, I was getting taxis here and taxis there, trying to meet everybody that I could meet, that I wanted to see. So yeah, and I've been coming here since 2002, most of the festivals since then, and it's not one that I leap with joy at the prospect of coming back to Berlin, but it's one of those that maybe you feel as though you sort of have to come in some ways.
One of the frustrations for me is that the festival itself demands a certain time and attention if you want to make it remunerative for you, and yet it's a fine city that when I'm here I just want to be in and about the city, and finding those windows in which to engage with that space, you know, are few and far between if one is to make money from this festival. And I don't see the point of coming to this festival if you're not. It's one of the few on the festival calendar that I can go to and actually make some form of profit from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as I say, it's a remunerative festival, and it can lead to other invites to more enjoyable places,
with that
more
immediately
enjoyable
quantifiable, right? You
Yeah.
meet them in, and you know.
But I did break away from Potsdamer Platz, and I did go to the James Benning exhibition in Mitte area, which was 3 stops up the
Which isn't part of the.
It's not. Originally, I think it was mentioned that it might be part of Forum Expanded, but it's in the gallery that Benning often has his stuff in. It's an installation in one room and a film basically showing in another. And the best film I've seen at the Berlinale was Measuring Time, which is Benning's film, which isn't part of the Berlinale. So that feels very strange to say.
What a very Neil Young thing.
and I did have a day where I had a couple of long walks. So I walked from here to Zoopalast, the old heart and home of the festival.
Did you do it at night?
It was night by the time I got there, because I got lost, because in Berlin I didn't realise that the numbering goes along one side and then back along the other. It's not like in Britain where the numbers go on either side of the road.
Well, I was just aided, because I did the same walk last night to see Shelley, the feature debut by Swedish filmmaker, I think. Ali Abbasi.
I think he's Danish.
But it's a Swedish-Danish co-production,
Okay.
That's my confusion. And I walked there, and it was already night when I set off, so I didn't have the pleasure of seeing Berlin at dusk. Because it's a great city. Every corner seems to, yield just new architectural awe. But so you walk to Zoo Palace. It's about a 45-minute walk.
How about that?
Took me 50. I had to ask for directions at the 11th hour, and I just caught the film. But it's a great city. I'm enjoying my time here this year, because I feel like I'm writing less this year, although I'm not seeing less. I'm just not obliged to cover every film I see.
And also you're not running out of the screening and running to your computer and dashing out a review.
No, I haven't been. I haven't been under that kind of pressure this year. And although it's nice to know that one can, in brief stints, sustain the kind of energy required of that, it is nicer if you can, take a step back. So, for instance, I've just filed my review of A Quiet Passion, the Terence Davies film, which kind of bafflingly premiered out of competition in the otherwise negligible Berlinale special gala sidebar.
I've been told that Mr. Davies is now not in favour of his films being in competitions.
Okay, well, fair enough. That's his prerogative, and I respect.
And also, it's a mistake that people presume that the competition is the best films.
Obviously that's the one that invites the red carpet talent, and there's a certain level of prestige. I'm with you on the front that the competition isn't necessarily the best films.
It's kind of unusual for the best films to be in competition.
But what I was going to say is that I've had the luxury of, I saw Quiet Passion 2 days ago at the press screening.
In a very small room?
In a very, very small room.
Tiny?
Oddly small room. Well, people were turned away, right? And I had 2 days in which, because it was a film that I didn't dislike it, right? I was edging towards the positive. It's a film very much to admire more than love, I would say, and I still hold by that regard.
Would you consider yourself a Terence Davies fan?
No, because I'm coming at this film in relative ignorance. I haven't seen his whole body of work.
Of what you've seen, does it tickle you?
Yes and no, because
Tickle me, Terence.
for me, his films are the emotional currents that run through his films are more cerebral than intuitive, if I can put it that way. So I always feel like I want to love them more than I actually do.
That like too calculated for you?
I think calculated is the wrong word if cerebral and calculated can remain separate, entities. But I had 2 days in which to kind of mull over, and I wrote my review this morning. I woke up early to write it, and in working through that review, I've ended up giving it a stellar A grade for IndieWire, or what I would call it an A grade, and it's kind of a masterful work. Thinking about it,
but it's not one you would recommend to friends necessarily to go and see.
No,
unless they're fans of Emily Dickinson. Just in case people don't know, it's a
biography of Emily
of
Dickinson, the 19th century American poet who was born and died in Amherst, Massachusetts.
The Belle of Amherst, as she was known, and as
born in 1830, died in 1886.
As viewers of Being John Malkovich will remember, in which a giant puppet of Emily Dickinson appears.
What?
At the beginning of the film,
I can't remember that.
At the beginning of the film, John Cusack is watching some rival puppeteer who has a gigantic 30-foot high puppet of Emily Dickinson doing the Belle of Amherst.
Oh, right.
And he's like, what a hack!
Coming up.
So in my ideal alternative universe, Terence Davies would begin his film with a 30-foot puppet of Emily Dickinson. Emily Davidson would be a great biopic. That was the woman who threw herself in front of the King's horse. And then it would shrink down into Cynthia Nixon through complex CGI. But that's,
There is complex CGI utilised in this film. A very brief transitional interlude in which the young actors playing the Dickinson children transmogrify into the older actors playing the older versions of the characters, and it sounds like terrible, and it's
sounds like Monty Python.
They're posing for a daguerreotype, and it's kind of startling because it kind of takes you out of this otherwise established universe, but it works. It's good. I liked it.
Do you think cinema is it possible stroke desirable stroke feasible for films to capture poetry? As a poet yourself, you have written verse.
As a poetical figure, I've always been averse to that that branding of a certain kind of art cinema, and I blame the likes of distributors that were around when I first got into purchasing DVDs and videos and stuff, like Artificial Eye, that would always brand Tarkovsky as this is poetry. Is cinema is poetry something that cinema should aspire to? I don't know, right? I'm not really interested in those questions. For me, this isn't about Dickinson's poetry. It's about the life, the considerably mysterious and kind of very, very claustrophobic life that she led, that may have the kinds of different currents, domestic and social, that she responded to through her work without necessarily being about the work itself. Because, the majority of her published poems in her lifetime were done so anonymously. And, the poems that we came to know her for were discovered posthumously. So, it references that. And it also references, in the same way that I was reminded very slightly, I mean, it's a weird comparison to make, I think, but Gus Van Sant's Elephant kind of very intelligently included all of these different theories and reasons that had been put forth in certain discourses about why the Columbine tragedy had taken place, right, including something as banal as the weather. There's nothing specific and concrete because so little was known of Dickinson's life after she had died. Her sister, Lavinia, had destroyed all of her correspondences, fulfilling her wishes, and so there's not really much known about her life, although there's different theories. Was she depressed? Was she bipolar? And Davies kind of acknowledges these and includes scenes with which to account for those kinds of theories without kind of settling into one single register. I think it's a very, very intelligent work. It is moving, but as I say, in a kind of cerebral sense, I wasn't kind of bowled over by it. But it's a cumulative, and it's very, very funny. Nixon's great. The chemistry that she shares with Jennifer Eel, who plays her sister, is palpable and infectious, and it's very, very witty, very dialogue driven as well.
Is it like so Whit Stillman type witty?
Well, I haven't seen his latest film, which is probably the best comparison to make because of its period production. I was kind of using that as a
sparkling.
It's not sparkling, but I spoke to a few critics afterwards, and they were taken aback by its witticisms. Catherine Bailey plays one of Emily's sister's friends, whose name is Friley. Hold on, I've written it here somewhere. It was Vreiling Buffum. Vreiling Buffum. It sounds like an anagram, doesn't it? That's what she says. And her line, she gets to deliver the film's best lines because she's more of like a socialite, progressive figure who does engage with society. And Emily Dickinson obviously opted not to, even though she, sustained her social output. Catherine Bailey gets to deliver. She has to stand in for the wider currents to which Emily Dickinson was responding to, even though she was kind of, deliberately housebound. And she does so very well.
So Terence Davies went a long time without doing a narrative film, and then he did Deep Blue Sea and
Sunset Song,
and now this within the space of just a few years.
Yeah, three films in 6 years.
It's a bit like Terence Malick, it's kind of like you wait for a bus.
Yeah, he's 70 years old now.
Clock's ticking.
I know many journalists and critics, none of them are British actually, but who think he's the best living British filmmaker. I'm always asked at festivals, who do you think is the best British filmmaker? Is this Terence Davies? And I'm like, well, no, not for me, but this is the first time I've watched one of his films and I thought, okay, I can see the validity of that sentiment.
You can see the mastery of Terence Davies.
Yes.
I haven't seen the film. And
Keith Carradine plays Edward Dickinson, a prominent political figure father.
Keith is the one who was the singer in Nashville.
Yes, and in Southern Comfort as well.
Right, yes.
Howard's Booth.
Well, it's always good to see Carradine.
The funny thing is that all of these this transitional interlude that I mentioned, all of the younger actors are transmogrifying into older actors. Keith Carradine, who plays the father throughout, all that happens to him is he loses a bit of hair. And his eyes kind of grow dark.
I'm sure that costs many man hours of CGI to do that.
But he's great in it, there's many things to like about this film.
Well, speaking of special effects extravaganzas, such as A Quiet Passion, the one film, I think the only film that we've both seen at this festival is Midnight Special, is that correct?
Probably, yeah.
Yes, and that's another thing about this festival. You can speak to people and they mention films and sections that you kind of don't even know exist. Because there's so many films and so much to choose from, and so to actually focus on one particular section as people do like competition. So we sat next to each other watching Midnight Special. I don't think we really discussed it afterwards, and obviously it's a film which
you filed your review. I haven't read it yet for RogerEbert.com because I've been commissioned to write about it for Vice. And for which I'll be arguing that it's my kind of sci-fi in its reinterpretation of American landscapes that are very, very familiar to us, and it's kind of a gritty. I don't like the word throwback in general, but especially about this film because all the discourse around it seems already to be about how it harks back to Spielberg and John Carpenter. I've not read your review, but does it perpetuate such filthy ideas?
Cannot. I do use the words Spielbergian stroke Carpenter-esque with a slash between them because I think they are the elephant in the room, and he's been very open about the fact that it's influenced heavily by Starman, to a certain degree Close Encounters and E.T. Everybody, this is the obvious template. My issue with the film is that at a certain point that gets you so far on the journey, it's a road movie, and then in the final leg you've really got to come up with your own stuff.
Well, I thought the first, let's say the 2/3 were great. It opens very, very strongly. Big fan of title cards flashing up while the action unfolds behind it, rather than like a cut to black. While
a car is motoring through. Is it just because there's a bit where Joel Edgerton, who I think is the best thing in the film, puts like night driving glasses on and then turns the lights off in the car, and is that when the title card comes up?
So I don't know if it's at that point, but
it's one of those. I was saying that's cool. I can't remember that having been done before. And I was like, oh, why are you doing it exactly? What's going on here? Like a lot of this film is why what? And
well, it gives us information on a need-to-know basis. It's because they're being chased.
Yeah.
Haven't you figured this out?
Yeah,
it's because they're being chased and their registration plate's been broadcast on the radio or on the national, news, or regional news at least.
Yeah.
And so they don't draw attention to the car by having lights on. They're driving very fast.
Yeah, but they're drawing attention to the car by driving with all the lights off. So if you're a cop on the roadside, you can still see the car. It's not invisible.
Sci-fi's all about being counterintuitive.
It's not cloaking. It's not like the Enterprise where it goes into cloaked mode.
But just to recall briefly the plot. It begins kind of in media res. Two guys are on the run having kidnapped a child, we are told. That's the first thing we hear before we see any images or the radio. And as I say, on a need-to-know basis, it's gradually revealed that he hasn't necessarily been kidnapped. Well, he has, but it's by his own father. That's the spoiler. It's kind of revealed.
He's been liberated from a religious
religious cult. Headed by Sam Shepard, who I think is underused because it's a great performance in the two scenes he's in.
And also that whole stuff with this, the ranch, as it's called, which is this religious community, and the government is like coming in, and Sam Shepard has this line about it's not illegal to own weapons in this country yet. And of course, in America, they just had that huge standoff in Oregon with these the right-wing militia who were holding a wildlife refuge. And I think there are some kind of missed tricks here that we could have. I would imagine in some versions of the screenplay we get a lot more about the religious community. It's just kind of you get glimpses of it and you can see what's going on. But yeah, then they're on the run. They've got this kid who's obviously got some kind of spooky supernatural shit going down.
It's a great structuring principle, I think, to employ the road movie, a very cinematic old kind of worn out trope, let's say, and to utilise that to go somewhere literally and geographically and thematically.
Yeah. I mean, they don't really get very far though. That's slightly a problem. Like in Starman, they cover a lot of miles, and in this, I think they go from Texas to Louisiana to maybe Florida or something like that. So I was kind of, you go in with high
it's far enough. I'd like to see you drive it.
do it
night vision goggles.
with all
but Edgerton does a lot with a little.
No, I think he gets a lot. I think the film's about him, to be honest. I mean, as I've said in my review, Michael Shannon, who's in all of Jeff Nichols' films, because the film is about that he believes in his son, and he believes that his son has this special whatever it is. And at the beginning of the film he believes that, and at the end of the film he believes that. He doesn't change. The son is this kid who has strange powers, which we don't know what they are, and he's not any different by the end of the film. But at the beginning of the film, Edgerton is a kind of rational skeptic who's like, I don't really know what's going on here, maybe he's agnostic, and then an hour in, there's this kind of very strange scene where they say, sit down, we're going to tell you something, and you're like, oh God, what are they going to tell him? And what they tell him, I don't think is really kind of enough to...
What about we saw the world?
Well, yeah, because he's not seeing it with his own eyes, and he's not... I just think that, again, that's the crucial scene, and I don't think it's well enough written. And I think Nichols is a terrific director, and if he wins Best Director here, I think that's entirely plausible. But in terms of the scriptwriter, I just think he needs a bit of help, and I wish there was somebody like Richard Matheson around to kind of collaborate with him on the screenplays, because they always have really good ideas. Like Take Shelter is a fantastic idea, and then the way he kind of develops it, you kind of go, he didn't quite live up to the very high levels of your thing.
Almost as if he was too excited about how good it was, he went plunging into making the film rather than some sort of critical distance.
And his new film's already pre-production, Loving.
It's been picked up this week. I think.
So I think he's a very worthwhile filmmaker. But they're never as good on film as they are on paper. That's the problem.
You didn't like Wood?
I think they're kind of all the same. It's a bit like James Bond. All James Bond films are the same, and all Jeff Nichols films are kind of the same.
So this is a 6?
They're all 6s. If I'm rating films out of 10, I gave Shotgun Story 6, Take Shelter 6, Mud 6, a film that I can barely remember, to be honest. And then this Midnight Special, which on paper, Starman's one of my favourite films. I love John Carpenter. Anything like that is completely in my perfect zone. And I was like, right, Nichols is now going to do what he's been threatening to do. And at the end of it, I was like, it's another 6. And it's like, ugh. But the film's about faith, and I have faith in Jeff Nichols, and I'm sure, he's still only 37. That's the thing, he's been in competition in Berlin and Cannes. He's 37 years old, 37, 38. And I think he's got the potential to be the next Spielberg in a way, if there is one. I mean, him and Shyamalan were the
Isn't
ones.
Spielberg the next Spielberg?
Spielberg is the past, present, and future Spielberg. He's like a Hindu deity with it all at once. But no, I think somebody's got to make these commercial, intelligent blockbusters which aren't superhero adaptations, and who's going to do it? Which of the American filmmakers who can? I mean, this film. You know what the budget of this film was? Have a guess. In millions of dollars. Have a guess.
I have no idea about it. Seriously, I wouldn't know where to begin. Anything I say I feel is going to be reflect badly.
Well, for instance, Deadpool would be probably costing between 100 and 150 million.
130 million. Okay, I'm going to say this was like 60 million.
18 million.
18
is cost, which is
less than the Berlinale's budget.
Less than the Berlinale. It cost less to make this than it did to make Starman in 1984. Okay. So I think
and presumably a lot of the budget went on its final section.
No, I think a lot of the budget went on Kirsten Dunst and Adam Driver and Michael Shannon and different things. And then the special effects that you see in the latter section are nice, but I don't think they blew a hole in the budget. The best scene, I think one of the best scenes in the film is like a meteor, what you think is a meteor's falling on a gas station, and that would be if that was in any Hollywood film, you wouldn't blink at it. But then it's like there's a bit where he looks at the sky and he goes, "They're coming," and it's like, what's he talking about? Because again, I just think the script's gone through too many rewrites. But anyway, that's the one film that we've both seen. Is there anything lurking in small areas of the festival that you would say people should look out for?
Well, I mean, such recommendations, I mean, this is probably the way we operate. This is probably going to go online next Berlinale. But the frustration of this festival, or it's not a frustration really, it's just the nature of it, is that, as you said, you can be leaving the next day and you say to somebody, "Oh, is there something I should see? What have I enjoyed?" And you'll get a rave review of something from a trustworthy source, rare to come by, I know, but you'll go, "Well, I can't see that film now because it's either screening after I leave or it's every screening's taking place night before now, and there's no screening room to catch up with films." Video library, which might be a handy, reference point where, let's say, you can screen because a film festival this big probably shouldn't have one. I'm going to close that because it's getting a bit noisy.
And a lot of, for instance, at Rotterdam, the big festival just before this, a lot of films are shown twice to the press.
Yeah.
So like Love and Friendship, of which Tillman had 2 press screenings.
So why not? One thing, just to if it's logistically going to be difficult, why not have a screening, like a video library, where you can only watch, 20-minute slots of films?
What do you mean? You can only watch 20-minute excerpts of films?
Yeah. Would that not work?
You're going to watch the last 20 minutes
of
Midnight Special?
It's just an idea I come up with.
Yeah.
Anyway.
The first 20 minutes?
The director gets to choose which 20 minutes to see.
Yeah, I mean, I can see maybe if it was the first 20 minutes.
Buyer's market.
I mean, obviously there's market screenings as well.
Yeah, there is. Anyway, so to answer your question, the best film that I've seen this week is Deborah Stratman's The Illinois Parables, which was in Forum Expanded. You didn't see it?
No.
But it's right up your territory because it chimes with your fascination with Illinois and is it Joliet or Joliet?
Joliet, yeah. I've just written a very long article which will be on MUBI imminently. I'm sure the editor has assured me, which was I had 4 hours in Joliet, Illinois, which was the prison capital of America, as used to be, and Public Enemies was filmed there, and White Heat and Prison Break, and The Blues Brothers begins in Joliet, and it's a very fascinating and overlooked
city of bridges.
Lots of bridges, huge industrial bridges from the 1930s, and everybody in Chicago was like, "Don't go to Joliet, you'll get killed, it's dangerous." And I'm like, well, when's the next train to Joliet? So does Illinois Parables go to Joliet?
It does, although I wasn't to know until the end credits when a list of Illinois places and shooting locations crop up. I've not been to Chicago.
Deborah Stratman has she studied with Benning, or she's collaborated with Benning, or is some Benning connection there?
Possibly, probably. I mean,
she's in Kelly Cigarettes.
You can, okay, so that would make sense. I've not seen it. You can tell to read the synopsis of the film, to watch the film, and to hear her speak about the film afterwards, that she acquires a lot of her funding or operates within an academic landscape through the syntax and jargon she uses, not in an off-putting sense, which can often be the case, I think, with these kinds of
I'm thinking of Sharon Lockhart, who's in. I'm thinking of Sharon Lockhart, who's in 20 Cigarettes.
Okay.
But I think Deborah Stratman has studied the CalArts, but anyway.
Okay, well...
so is the film Benning-esque in any way?
I mean, in certain respects, there are, very, very compelling landscape shots shot on celluloid of, Illinois landscapes, industrial, rural, quasi-urban, semi-urban, pseudo-rural.
Carl Urban. Is Carl Urban in it?
It's not, no. And it's about the history of Illinois from the 9th century, I think. Up until present day, and includes history such as the murder of Fred Hampton, the Black Panthers leader in 1969, the critical mass, the discovery of the mechanics by which, or the physics by which nuclear energy could be formed. Is that the way of defining it?
Oppenheimer? Was he involved with that?
Not in this film, I don't think.
All right, okay.
And the forced migration and exodus of the Cherokee people.
So it's a microcosm of the USA.
But it's like the way questions of technological advancement and, as I say, migration and forced resettlement kind of intersect is very interesting. It's matched by the film's kind of rambling, meandering form across 11 episodes, which are pictorially signified with Roman numerals, but in terms of soundscape, the whole thing is like kind of one essay.
Because she did that film about the French Connection, the Conversation.
Yeah,
it's called
Circuit.
Yeah, it's a short film about sound recordists. No, it's a short film about sound recordists, kind of replicating the conversation where the camera goes around the block.
Well, the Foley artists.
Yeah, Foley artists, yeah. It's closed circuit? No.
Open circuit?
Open
Is
circuit?
it closed circuit?
It's something with circuit in the title. Circuit breaker.
Jesus.
Anyway. Deborah Stratman, a very important American experimental film.
Oh yeah, I think so. Like, really as
you said in the introduction, Forum Expanded is. I wish I had time to explore Forum Expanded. I wish I had time to explore Critics Week. I wish I had time to explore the generation section, the children, the young people's section, which everybody who goes there always says it's much more curated than the other sections. But I don't, and it's very frustrating. And I'm aware that I'm watching things that aren't necessarily stimulating to me. I'm watching them because they're reviewable, and it is cumulatively frustrating year after year to have to do that. And
so, have you seen anything you've liked?
I mean, probably the best thing I've seen is Midnight Special.
Okay.
Apart from the Benning measuring time at the gallery, and I've still got 2 films to go today. Fantastic, the rather forbiddingly titled American independent film, and The Revolution won't be televised. And probably Rio Corgo later, and then tomorrow I'm seeing Soinero. Okay. So one of those 4, by the law of averages.
Well, hold on, because you're a numbers man, you're a betting man, or we used to be. Isn't Soinero your favourite to win the competition?
It was my favourite to win the Golden Bear, but then for various reasons, Mia Hansen-Løve's L'Avenir Things to Come has taken over as favourite.
And you didn't see it?
I haven't. I don't contaminate my predictions with my opinions.
But you haven't seen it?
No, that doesn't bother me because I'm not. Nick James is representing us as film critics on the jury, and Téchiné's being 17, which went over very well in the screening. So I think that's up there. Fire at Sea, Gianfranco Rosi,
which I did see also,
and Soinero I think still in with a shout, but. Going into the festival, that was the one that appeared to have the best chance, but it was a 4-to-1 shot, so it was only a 20% chance. I wasn't saying it was going to win. I was just saying, I'm saying of the candidates.
Hey, listen, you're justifying.
That was the least unlikely winner. But at the minute, I think Mia Hansen-Løve, who's a filmmaker, she's still only 30. She's rather jarring.
Well, I'm to be honest, I'm sick of.
Hold her, she's 35.
I'm sick of reading reviews of this film, this latest film. Things to come that mention her age as if it's like, okay, she's obviously had a heavy say in the write-up of the programme, the press kit, and obviously it's being positioned as a kind of departure thematically from her previous work. which has been centred around youth. This is about a middle-aged mother of two whose husband leaves her, although he leaves her like kind of later than I expected reading the synopsis of the film. Played by Isabelle Huppert, who is marvellous, solid, predictably great, without, I think, being stretched, although I'll say that it's refreshing to see her in a film in which she's not tasked by a male director to do disturbing shit.
When was the last time Isabelle Huppert was stretched in a film, would you say?
I don't know.
Doesn't she sing in 8 Women and play the piano or something?
Perhaps. Does that stretch you on that? It's a film that I wanted to like because, along with Assayas's work, I feel like I'm missing out on something with Hansen Löw.
And of course they are a couple.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And it's a kind of facile reference point, but again, a little bit like an elephant in the room that needs to be acknowledged, I think, because I felt in this the same way as I did with Clouds of Sils Maria. Oh, bless you.
Yeah, it's called upstaging.
Didn't you have preparation for that by which to stop it?
It's called a handkerchief.
Embarrassing. Yeah. Anyway, I wanted to like it more. I felt the same way that I did with Sils Maria, is that it's kind of casual structure, focusing upon people of a class to which I have no real access.
French intellectual upper class people.
Yeah, whose philosophising great.
Aren't there funny cats in it, or cat jokes? Or
there is one cat in it that's kind of neglected throughout. No, not in cruel ways, but he's not really.
If the cat goes through the
one
shop,
scene in which she has a real vulnerable moment with the cat. She's feeling down and vulnerable, and so seeks solace in the cat's company.
If it was a Michael Haneke film, you would then fear for the cat.
Indeed.
The cat would not be long for this world. When the cat appears, I love it when cats are in films, because as soon as a cat goes through a room, it has to meow, just so you know it's a cat and not a large rat. And cats actually don't meow that much.
This is a big cat. At one point I thought, is that like the cat from Sabrina the Teenage Witch? Because it looks properly like animatronic almost, it's that big.
Isn't there what's the animatronic cat? Alain René has an animatronic fox or something like that, or a cat or a dog or something.
In which film?
In one of these very late films. Oh, yeah. So, right. So
I wanted to like it. It looks, exquisite. Its evocation of a certain scene, let's say, is effective. I think the mise en scène makes it look very, very lived in as a space. I'm thinking in particular of a rural retreat, because she's a philosophy teacher and she goes to a former student's kind of commune-like retreat in the countryside, and there's cluttered wooden tables outside with glasses and cups left from the night before, and it just feels like this is a certain social circle with which the director's comfortable, and she's very good at evoking that on screen.
Because of course the last film was Eden,
yeah.
Which was about the electronic dance music DJs, which I didn't see. But so this another one which you maybe cerebrally can appreciate, but it doesn't hit you on a gut level.
Yeah, and I'm not reviewing it, and in the process of doing so, was I to, I might find that there's nothing. She's obviously an intelligent filmmaker who knows what she wants to do, but that doesn't quite translate to a moving work for me. But as I say, Assayas, Hansen Löw they have their fans separately, not as one item, and it's one of the rare occasions where I feel like I'm missing out on something that I want to be part of.
Perhaps a second view would be beneficial.
Perhaps.
In this instance, which of course is very difficult at a film festival where you.
But this will be all over,
especially if it wins the Golden Bear,
which it
on
might.
Saturday. Which, according to the bookies, who you're looking at, it is the current favourite. But the bookies are very fickle, and if the Lav Diaz film lives up to all of the wonderful expectations, then who knows what will happen. But sadly, we're running out of time to get into the very controversial subject of Lav Diaz. And so we'll draw a discreet veil over the Philippines.
Both of us very sadly leave before the press screening. So we'll have to leave it there.
I'm sure I have other chances. So Partycrashers was originally devised and suggested in this very room.
It was indeed.
Stadtklause, 1 year ago. And do you think you'll be back next year for another Berlinale?
I hope so, and I don't see any reason why I wouldn't be.
But if it's not me here, you might have to find a new Partycrasher for next year.
This has been Michael Patterson.
This has been also Neil Young. So this is without special effects, 2 bodies, 1 voice.
Transmogrify into my face. We could switch.
If I can transmogrify into a Carradine, I would transmogrify into John Carradine, the wonderful star of horror films in the 1930s. He used to walk up and down Hollywood Boulevard declaiming Shakespeare verses, and he was known as the Bard of the Boulevard. So when I go to my grave, I would love to be known as the Bard of the Boulevard. But in the Stadtklause, I'm going to be Bard because I'm finishing this drink and I should really order another one.
Okay.
So thank you for watching. Good night.
Cheers.